Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. It is to the special board meeting of the Washoe County Board of County Commissioners for July 27, 2021. With that, Mr. Manager, will you lead us in a salute to the flag, sir? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Manager. I do appreciate that, and I want to thank everybody for joining us today for our special meeting. Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call, please?
Yes. Chair Bob Lucy.
Here.
Vice Chair Von Hartung.
Here.
Alexis Hill.
Here.
Kitty Jung. Present. Jeannie Herman.
Here.
County Manager Eric Brown.
Here.
Deputy District Attorney Mary Kenderis. Here. And I'm Chief Deputy Clerk Kathy Smith.
All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. I do appreciate it. Mr. Manager, we are on to item 3.
Item 3 is public comment. Comment heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the commission agenda. The commission will also hear public comment during individual action items with comment limited to 3 minutes per person. Comments are to be made to the commission as a whole.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Madam Clerk, will you please call public comment?
First up, we have Elise Weatherly. It is. It is.
Good morning, Ms. Weatherly.
Good morning. Elise Weatherly, not really prepared for this. I did not come up with what I wanted to talk to, so I asked God, I said, what should I say? And a little depressing, the fact that we all want to do what we think is right, and we want to, say thank you to people who are fighting our fires and do all this kind of stuff. But what I've noticed is that I am not allowed to compromise. That was my life for 40 years, when I was working with IT and accounting and music and all that stuff. If something either was or wasn't true. So when we do whatever we can to please people, even our own family, we sometimes end up in a pit. And so what I've decided to do today is to not worry about public opinion, not worry about if I'm going to risk losing somebody's love because I say, as they did in Mr. Mom, you're doing it wrong, right? I've been told that many times, you're doing it wrong. I don't want to listen to it. I don't want to believe it because it's hard to know that we make mistakes. But what I have pondered is, what do I do with the rest of this life I was given since I was only, I was assigned to death in 2015 by the medical community. I heard 3 little words: I'll sustain you. That's all I heard. Okay, so should I be one of those people that just tries to bridge things and we're all going to get along and do, good, like Mars Attack, right? Why can't we all just get along? Or am I going to stand up for what's true, even if it costs me something? You guys heard of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, right? He was a German back in the German days, and he went to England. It was nice in England. It was at peace in England, but he was picked up and put back to Germany. He didn't want to go, but he did go because he was supposed to go. What happened to him? He was assigned to prison, and he was hanged by the German government. He was hanged. I don't know him personally. I will someday, but I wonder, what did he think about when he was in that prison? Probably, I did it wrong. I made a mistake. What am I doing here? What am I supposed to be doing here? Well, ironically enough, that was in April, I think, of 1946. Now, when did Hitler commit suicide? Oh, the same month and the same year. So all I'm saying is Dietrich Bonhoeffer probably thought he'd made a horrible mistake, but maybe there's more to the story than meets the eye. Maybe sometimes when we make decisions where other people are not going to like us for it or think that we're tight and we're rigid and all that stuff, maybe we're supposed to go ahead and do it anyway. I don't know what that's going to mean for me. All I know is that I am very hated in this community right now. Highland Ranch Homeowners Association, I had the audacity to do what the state of Nevada demands I do, and that's look at the books. Guess what? I got squeezed out, and it wasn't legally or lawfully. I've got medical people in this town that don't have the faith that it took to say, oh, your brain tumor's gone, let's don't send you back to chemo. I almost died because of that. So what do? I'm just going to pick up the sword, expose the deeds of darkness, and continue and say thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weatherly.
Next up, we have Kenji Otto, and he's provided some handouts, which I will pass out to the board.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Can we get the overhead, please? Welcome, Mr. Otto.
Good morning. So again, I'd like to just remind everybody, or just put out that Nevada is now a Marxist government, and each one of you getting this. There is a website, nvesovr@gmail.com, if you want more information. But again, don't take my word for it. Look the information up for yourself. I gave you all the websites. And what I'd like to actually, my main item here today is Commissioner Lucy at the last health board mentioned about the interagency agreement. And I'd like the commissioners to consider having a committee to review this agreement, since it's like from the 90s, and I think it needs to be reviewed as well. I'm taking a look at the state laws. I have the state laws that cover that right here, and I've already updated it, so I have the corrected items. But if you can just consider looking at from the county's perspective whether or not it needs to be reviewed, and also whether or not things need to be updated. And then maybe if you do this, then you can consider asking the city of Reno and the city of Sparks to do the same, and then bring that committee together to update, since it doesn't look like it's been updated. It was originally made in the 80s, and there is a big question on whether the health officer should be sitting where he's sitting as well. And I wouldn't have a problem participating in that. So again, if maybe Commissioner Lucy could ask County Manager Brown to look into that and consider developing a committee for a short time at least to review to see if it needs to be updated. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Otto.
We have no one else signed in.
All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll close public comment and bring it back to the board. Mr. Manager, we're on to item 4.
Item 4 is Commissioners, County Managers' announcements, reports, and updates to include boards and commissions, updates, requests for information, or topics for future agendas.
Mr. Manager, do you have anything that you would like to
I
add
do
this
not,
morning?
Mr. Chair.
All right. Commissioners, Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I would like a staff report and the help of this body, if possible, about an issue that I've been working on for 14 years, sadly. It's not even in my district, and that's Courts Lane. Mr. Stockard was here again. By the way, he's a Korean War veteran, and we have received no relief there. One cleanup does not a sustainable policy make. I want to know what the legal problems are, and I'm not scared anymore. That's fine. Let people with their junk vehicles come try to sue Washoe County because we moved their vehicles without the DMV being able to trace them. Put them on some of our lots, get that stuff out of there, and I want to report by the end of the week what Courts Lane looks at. And I know Commissioner Herman supports this too. We talked about this, and this is a major fail of Washoe County, and I am so embarrassed. For 14 years I've been dealing with this gentleman, and we have never found a solution that was sustainable to that problem. And he brings up great issues. Fire can't go up that lane because it's a one-car only lane, if you're lucky, because of all the junk vehicles that are dropped in that dip of Courts Lane. 14 years, I'm going to tell you, and I'm very upset with staff about this, and I'm upset with the sheriff, and I'm upset with the DA. This needs to be brought back here to us, solve the problem, make it sustainable, and let's take some legal risks, rather than telling a tax-paying citizen, a veteran of this country in his golden years, that, well, we don't know what to do. No more answers is that allowed. Well, my last year and a half here, I've had it. Number 2, Sun Valley Boulevard speeding. This has been something I've brought up many times. It became especially apparent across the whole valley, it's not just Sun Valley, during the stay-at-home orders. People were opening up their engines and entertaining themselves on the streets because they're sick of being home. I get it. But it has not in any way decreased with the back to normal as much as we are. And if anything, it's become worse. I do need the manager to get a hold of NHP. Sun Valley Boulevard, just so everybody knows, the jurisdiction is Nevada Highway Patrol. Nevada owns that road. And I don't believe that, you know how many times I've seen NHP on Sun Valley Boulevard? Once, and I was pulled over for a license registration. I didn't have my, I had my extension card there once. I've never seen NHP there again. Of course, they pull me over when it's that situation. But that is also something the sheriff needs to get on, along with his partners at Nevada Highway Patrol. That is often a valley, as are many in the North Valleys, that are neglected, disrespected, and completely ignored. And it's not okay. It's just really not okay. And it broke my heart to hear from Mr. Stockard today. I'm not gonna, and I'm embarrassed. I'm really embarrassed about my performance, that in 14 years, I couldn't get legal help. I couldn't get sheriff help. And it sounds like the last time we cleaned it up, it was because the firefighters helped us. So now let's take this back. And I want an answer by Friday. I need it. It's no longer playing games around here. It's not even my district, but I promised Commissioner Herman that I would bulldog this. And I also feel a commitment to Mr. Stockard. It's a fail. That's the letter of F today. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Jung. I appreciate it. Any other commissioners signed in for any comments? Commissioner Herman?
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much, Commissioner Jung. Appreciate all the help.
All right. I will share a couple comments from concerns from public comment. We did have a District Board of Health last week, and finally, we had the opportunity to discuss openly amongst the board members and the governing body the wills from the strategic plan meeting that this commission had back in January 20th, and I want to make sure everybody understands that I carried for exactly the requests from all commissioners from that strategic meeting to the District Board of Health, and the outcome of that was for the District Board of Health manager to convene with all three entity managers to discuss what the interlocal agreement should be addressed, and some of the challenges that should be made. There was an immediate agreement that to move forward with the name change. However, the other aspects of the interlocal agreement that there are concerns about will be addressed with all three managers, and that should be getting scheduled before the next Board of Health meeting to address that. So there are that finally is in motion, and it's taken some time, and I'm highly critical of the chairman of that commission for taking as long as it's taken to get this place, but we finally got it moving. So hopefully we can get some resolution before the end of the year, which we need to do because we have a 90-day timeline to do so. So I'm looking forward to some resolution on that, and I promise to bring you back some form of changes to that. So other than that, that's all I have to report. And I have Commissioner Jung, I have you sign back in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you are working on the District Board of Health and the interagency and interlocal agreement, please do not be dissuaded to not use the nuclear option. We can disband that Board of Health and recreate it any way we want. The lawyers don't love it, but we are the ones that pull that trigger. We can completely disband it and set back up the next day. All contracts are null and void. All representation is null and void, et cetera, because nobody pays that except Washoe County. The District Board of Health is paid for by fines and fees, grants, which, as we all know, grants are not sustainable. They're a great creative way to try to earn some quick money, but not sustainable money. But the third thing is Washoe County General Fund transfers about 48% of the total budget. It used to be 54 when I first got there, and it might even be less, might be 36% now, but we are the drivers because we spend the money there. Mm-hmm. And if it comes to a point that you are unable to go any further than the impasse, the nuclear option per law And our lawyers here are not happy to go toe-to-toe because there's some dang good lawyers that used to be at REMSA, because that also breaks the REMSA contract. Everything is broke, but you can do it. And then you come back and you reset it and you write the policy. And don't forget that, Mr. Chairman, when you're over there, that you do have the nuclear option. And there are some people, some retired council members that I can put you in touch with who had mapped this, including a retired judge whose seat I took, Judge Sferrazza, who mapped out all the ways that you can do this. So you don't need to waste your time trying to recreate and you can go back and ask the city of Reno for minutes when we talked about this way back in the day. There is a nuclear option. So if you don't believe you're getting what you need to be getting, you have every right to bring that back to us, and we make that decision. That's our decision to do that. So please put that in your back pocket. I don't believe in nuclear war, but I also don't believe when people tell me I have no options. Yes, you do, and that's the one. And it is, handle it as such, but I'm not scared. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Jung, I'll just address that really quick. I did, to further my comments, I channeled, you would be happy to know, I channeled my inner Commissioner Jung that day. And if you go back and look at those minutes, it will reflect that I said exactly that. The county has the ability to do those and undo the Board of Health at our choosing, if they so not. So it was basically the county putting the District Board of Health on notice that we are looking for changes, and we are trying to be amenable to a very reasonable approach, but that doesn't mean a nuclear approach is not out of the question. And I think they heard us loud and clear. Hopefully we will get some kind of response, if not. But everybody was also educated on the funding and how that the district board is funded and whatnot. And that was made very clear by my colleague, Ms. Jung, who's educated me very, very distinctly on the challenges of that board and how that's been constructed over the years. So we'll see what the resolution is. Hopefully, Mr. Manager will be able to resolve that. But I did want to bring that back because it was brought up in public comment today, and we will address it in the next couple months, I promise you. All right, Commissioner Vice Chairman, I had you signed in.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I was going to comment on the District Board of Health, but it will broach on discussion, and we're not agendized for that today, but I would be happy to engage at some point. Thank you.
We will have that agendized. It will be agendized for a future meeting, I promise you that. All right. Seeing no further comments from any of the commissioners or the manager, I'll close item 4. We are on to item 5. Mr. Manager.
Item 5 is a recommendation and possible action to approve an agreement with the state of Nevada and the cities and counties of Nevada related to the allocation of any monetary recovery from the defendants responsible for the damages incurred by Washoe County and the other governmental entities due to the opioid crisis.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. This item was on our last county commission meeting. It was pulled due to a lack of some finalized documents. I believe we have those documents now from the state, and we have Deputy District Attorney Mr. Mike Large with us to address that concern. Mr. Large.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have before you an agreement between the state of Nevada and local governments and the that are litigating and non-litigating on behalf of the opioid epidemic. This agreement would be an allocation. It allows our outside counsel to have a negotiating position that would be a statewide approach to help settlement with potential defendants. As this board may have seen, recently 40 states have settled with the three major producers and the Johnson & Johnson for an amount of $26 billion in regard to the opioid epidemic. Nevada is not part of that settlement. Outside counsel is going to negotiate separately with those entities. This allocation agreement allows us to have a unified front on behalf of the entire state, and the percentages that are reflected in the exhibits to the agreement reflect the amount that Washoe County would get from each of the different distribution mechanisms. And if the board has any questions in regard to the percentages, I'm happy to go through with those as well.
All right, commissioners. Commissioner Hill, I have you signed in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say thank you to the chairman and vice chairman for negotiating this, as well as our deputy district attorney, Mr. Large. I think that we did have a 15% Medicaid match allocation. We gave 1% to the rurals, which I think is appropriate, but it was looking like it could have been much more. And I really appreciate the work that you all put into this. And I think that this is the right thing to do for our citizens to help make us whole and see what we can do to support our community. And I know we're pursuing some other litigation as well, so this won't be the last thing.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you know, you were out of town during the final negotiations. I don't bring that up for any reason other than to say you were left in very good hands with Mr. Large. They offered us a substantially less offer that was it was not tenable in my opinion, nor was it tenable in Mr. Large's opinion. And Mr. Large went back and negotiated this with the state, and I was very pleased with the outcome. I think it's equitable, and really the due goes to Mr. Large. So thank you for your hard work. You did a great job in this, and you held the line.
Well, I appreciate your support.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'd like to provide just a little bit of some background. This board realized and recognized when the opioid issue first came to light and the potentials of potential litigation, and took a very violent and very cohesive step forward to really make sure that we were a part of this, to represent not only our constituents but the county as a whole. The opioid epidemic has been rampant here in Washoe County. To say that it is not impactful across our state, or it only is impactful in certain parts of our state, is inaccurate. We have witnessed it for many years, how challenging it is. We've had some of the largest drug busts in the sense of doctors being prosecuted, individuals being prosecuted to address this issue. And when the initial settlement came out, there was initially a discussion of 50% to Clark County, 50% to Washoe, and 50 to Clark, 25 to Washoe, and then 25% to the rurals. Then through a number of negotiations and discussions across our colleagues across the county and across the state and with the state agencies, we felt obviously that 25 that was a inappropriate and not truly did not represent the needs of that settlement. So it went back and was reallocated to an extent of, I believe, 75-15 or 75.
It's 65, 14, and 25.
Correct.
That's what we have now.
That's what we had now. But prior to that, we went from 25 to 15.
It was 65, 20.
65, 20. That's right. 65, 20, 20. No, 65, 20. That doesn't add up. It would be 65, 20, 20. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
65, 15, 25.
Doesn't matter. Our allocation continued to dwindle from 25, then down to 15, and then down to at the last point it was 7.25. It was very low, and we in Washoe County were willing to work with our other sister large county, urban county down south, Clark County, to help adequately fund some of the rural counties to address their needs as well, because it is important, but not at the detriment to our own citizens. And through these different conversations, and I'm very pleased that Mr. Large and Vice Chair Hartung were available to address this, but in the final hours, those numbers changed. And we adamantly said that is not acceptable for this commission, not acceptable for this county, not acceptable for our residents. And went back and diligently fought to adjust those percentages so that we can, because I don't want to set any type of precedent going forward, because this is important. important enough that we hired outside litigation, outside consultants to move forward with litigation on this. And it's important that we continue to fight for this type of money to really rectify the challenges that some of these impacts have had from these companies, because they are far and wide, and they are not just specifically to whether somebody was in jail or worked through human services or what has happened with the placement of children. There are a number of challenges that have come from the opioid crisis. And now that we've shined light on it, and we are not going to sit idly by and let the state or anybody else dictate what our final outcome is. I'm happy to get where we are today, but we are going to work hard to continue to get the money to make sure that we make our county whole as it pertains to the opioid epidemic. So with that, Commissioner Jung, I have you signed in next too.
Thank you. I just a point of clarification. Are there any, I counted 17 counties. I don't know how many cities are in the state of Nevada. Are there anybody notably missing?
The allocation formula contemplates all the counties in the state of Nevada.
I'm talking about you going before them to approve this. Is there anybody missing?
No, not at this juncture.
Are we the first?
No, there are several other counties that haven't had it on their agenda.
Not just counties, there's cities too on here.
Counties and cities,
Yeah.
they've had it on their agenda in the last week and in the next 2 weeks. The expeditious portion of this is that by April 15th, the Purdue pharmacy bankruptcy needs to be in place. So that was the first step in this allocation agreement. But this is also applies to other allocation agreements with the major manufacturers like
What
Johnson
if every
& Johnson.
place doesn't agree to this?
Then we'll have to go back and reassert it. This has been a very much a time-consuming and difficult negotiation with a lot of
What if we
moving
didn't
parts.
approve it today? What would happen to us?
What was that?
What if we didn't approve it today? What would happen to us?
Then we would have to essentially I let the state know that there's no agreement on behalf of Washoe
So
County.
it
and
stops
then-
everybody.
Well, it would stop the total for this. The negotiations would still occur. They just wouldn't be on behalf of all of the state of Nevada. They would be on behalf of.
Got it. Okay.
Each-
So
each
it's not
different
really a
portion.
trigger or it's the will of whoever these bodies are that to decide if they will agree. It sounds like everybody's in agreement, but I always love to know the plan B
Well, it would be.
and the what ifs. I live in what if.
We would be negotiating, our outside counsel would then be negotiating on behalf of Washoe County exclusively, Clark County exclusively to do this. It would be very difficult, and I can't, from a litigation standpoint,
Okay.
I don't think it's the best option. And
Right,
that's
no,
why
I agree, but I just love knowing that what B, C, D, what can happen. Here's one thing that needs to be addressed from the management team. Let's make sure whenever we are doing autopsies, or we are paying for indigent care at the hospitals, we're the only people that pay for people that don't have any money in Washoe County, no matter where you're from. You could be from Iceland and you get hurt on our roads, in our buildings, at a restaurant. We pay your bills if you have no insurance, always. So let's make sure that we have much better record keeping. And I'm not saying one way or the other, but I bet you found that the record keeping is what's going to make the case for the harm that's been here. And that's deaths and autopsies, which we prevent. We do autopsies on all unattended deaths. We're very good at doing autopsies is what I'm going to say. The rules are terrible because they don't have doctors doing autopsies. It's their sheriff who's the coroner. So we don't have a real count even in the rules because they don't transfer their bodies here because it's expensive. I get it. But I want to see from staff, what are we doing to do? Are we buying new software? And how are we going to make sure we are collecting all the data so next time we sue, which this is a long way, we're going to be suing until I'll be gone a year and a half from now. Make sure you're collecting all the justification so that when you get up there with the state and the different counties, you can prove it and make sure you do the research to get the best software to do that. And as the chairman said, it's not just ODs and even our indigent care, which is very expensive, I might say, our indigent care. These hospitals would not survive anywhere in Northern Nevada without us providing indigent care. But make sure we're pulling all the data. And I'm not the first to think of this. I've never thought that I had an original thought in my life. It's always because I've heard some, or I'm just late to the game and somebody found it. I want you to go back and make recommendation or have us hire somebody. What do we need to buy? And what do we need to train staff on? So we have every single data point of how the unfettered release of highly addictive good-feeling drugs, as far as I've heard. I've never done any heroin or any opioid derivative in my life. Thank God. I don't really handle medicine well, period. But I want to make sure that we get every penny that we have expended. Arguably, we could say we had to build a CARES campus because of the opioid epidemic. So I want much better, tighter, justifiable data moving on forward. And if that means investment from this board, we got to do it, because I'm certain we've left a lot of money on the table because we couldn't demonstrate that. And I might say, I've been on this board and on the record, and I get quarterly reports from the ME because I've been raising this red flag for what, 8 years? So I'm going to say that now is the time, and I want this board's support with that. You know what data you need to collect. You know what fell flat on flat ears. You know what other communities brought, and you had to go, well, they have that. I don't know those details, and I'm sure the vice chairman knows that too, but let's make sure we're proactive so that we can, and don't tell them that we're doing that. I'm sure they're listening to this right now, but keep it internal, because then they're all going to be on the same system, and then we're not going to be as competitive and get the true numbers. So, but I do know that throughout this country, the effects of this epidemic is beyond a loss of a loved one. And I might also recommend another great movie, 4 Good Days. Please watch it. You have to pay for it right now at Amazon. It's like $5. Please watch it, because it's Glenn Close, who's just fabulous, but it really goes into what it does to a mother, her family, when her own adult child is just can't even put in 4 good days to get the new shot that we have now to block any of the opioids, so you don't get high off of it. Doesn't do anything about the cravings, but and it's Mila Kunis is in it too, my cousin, and you have to watch this just to see how freaking brutal this epidemic has been on families and the victim. And I consider these people who have got into the opioid epidemic because they got their wisdom teeth pulled at 16 to be victims of doctors who sent them home with 75 pills and said, "You're 16, why not?" And they're highly, highly addictive, and nobody knew that, and nobody was warned. And I really want the full cost that they bear to be paid back to this county, because we had to take care of this, run and put together this CARES campus with new money, which we could have used 10 years ago. So I really have to implore you to use our data points and make sure when we're standing in line for the Sacklers to pay us back, Washoe County has the justification. Thank you, Mr. Large. I know this has been a lot to put your hands around, and I was kind of snotty with you this morning, so please accept my apology. But this opioid crap gets me really wound up, too, because I think it's a real injustice that we've suffered as a country because of liars. Thank you.
No apology necessary, Commissioner. And to echo your concerns, I agree with you completely in regard to the claims data that was submitted on behalf of Washoe County. We can do and we will do a better job in regard to our record keeping, and I'm happy to work with staff in regard to making sure that the amounts that this board and our communities expend on opioids and treatment and deaths are very much reported moving forward. This information, that most of this litigation is based on historical stuff. We can't do anything about our historical data, but we can improve our processes moving forward to make sure that every dime is accounted for and that our taxpayers are refunded. No amount of money is ever going to overcome what's happened with the opioid epidemic that's swept this country and has devastated communities. But this is a good first start in regard to getting an amount of money that could go towards treatment, to go towards, preventing this in the future. And I think the agreement that you have before you is a good first step in that.
Mr. Large, in regards to other current cases and pieces of litigation that we're part of, this is one of 3 that we're currently a part of, correct?
The reflection of all the law, this essentially allows our outside counsel to negotiate on our behalf for all of the lawsuits.
All of the lawsuits.
All the lawsuits.
This is not just Purdue, this is all lawsuits.
In Exhibit A, you'll see a list of all of the cases that are part of it. Washoe County is a part of the one that is listed there under CV 20-01142, which is filed in our court. We're also a party to several other pieces of litigation. This agreement would allow us to negotiate on behalf of all of the litigation the Washoe County is a party to in order to do a settlement with those defendants.
So that would be, I have as Exhibit C, correct?
I'm sorry.
Exhibit C is the one that shows all of the defendants.
Yes,
Listed.
yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right. All right. And so it's, all right, thank you. I appreciate it. Vice Chairman, I have you signed it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For Commissioner Jung and dovetailing on what you just said, we had conversations, Mr. Large, Mr. Manager, the executive team, we had conversations about fracturing the coalition. And, we felt a united front was the best path forward for not only Washoe County, but all of our partnering members in the state. And so we did discuss splintering it and how it would affect us. We did not feel that we would have as much power not standing firm with the rest of the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from Mr. Large or comments at this time? Mr. Large, thank you I appreciate that. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment signed in on this item?
We do not.
All right, seeing no public comment.
Mr. Chairman,
All right, Mr. Vice Chairman.
motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Hill. Motion from Vice Chairman Hartung. I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously with all commissioners voting. Except for, there we go. Please affirm your votes on the screen, ladies and gentlemen. All right, that is our only piece of business for today. Mr. Manager, can you take us to item 6?
Item 6 is public comment. Comment heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the commission agenda. The commission will also hear public comment during individual action items with comment limited to 3 minutes per person. Comments are to be made to the commission as a whole.
All right. Madam Clerk, will you please call public comment?
Elise Weatherly.
Welcome back, Ms. Weatherly.
Thank you. Elise Weatherly. All I will say is I wish I would have signed up for a comment for the opioids because this runs very deep in my life. What I will say is that my daughter, I don't want her to be classified as a victim. She chose to do those opioids, unfortunately. Now, what I will say is that when she was on the heroin, her dad rescued her. He took her to Missouri so that, he could help her get off of it. All he did was transition her to a different type of drug. So Michael Earl Weatherly, thanks to an autopsy done by a medical person down in Arizona, at my request, discovered meth in his system when he died. Okay, so Mike Weatherly pretended like he was on everybody's side and all he did was get his daughter hooked on these drugs, right? But unfortunately, my daughter does not want to be held responsible for what she's done with this situation. It's my fault. I'm the bad guy by telling her, don't do this, right? So I love the fact that this board is holding people responsible for what they've done. That to me is wonderful. Maybe next week, I was here for, I know I'm here for a reason. Maybe next week we could itemize all the mistakes that I've made over my life. I just don't have enough time for that. So my mistakes have to be my responsibility to overcome. Do you know what I did on Facebook when they were planning this trip to Washington, D.C.? I went, I'll drive you there. It was a joke. I didn't think that they were going to be doing this. I didn't know what they were going to be doing. I didn't know it was going to be illegal and so vicious and violent. It made me question everything that I had, decided from before that fact. I was not going to vote for Donald Trump. I was going to vote for Ben Carson. I actually kind of sort of met him, right? Ben Carson was just a little bit too nice, right? Donald Trump was just a little bit, more in your face, and I think kind of what we might have needed that at those 4 years, but 4 years was enough of it, right? I had actually met with the mayor of the city of Sparks, Ron Smith, when he was alive, right? I brought in a birthday card so we could send to Elon Musk because the Gigafactory, for some unknown reason, has a Sparks address. Still haven't figured that one out. It's in a different county. Oh, well. Anyway, Elon Musk was going through some really hard stuff. Do you know what I did? I cried for him. I prayed for him. I even started singing a little song in an existing piece in a song for him. My producer engineer, Tom Gordon, said, no, that doesn't fit. So we pulled it out. But in the meantime, I saw Elon Musk. My prayers were answered. He was picked up out of the ground. His stock went sky high. He had all this stuff going on. And how did he respond to that? He got even more involved into himself. His pride overwhelmed him. So it doesn't matter what I try to do. You know, some people are going to accept it and some people aren't. But I will say, you guys, that I don't want 501(c)(3)s to even exist anymore. All the money that I have put into this community thinking that we were on each other's side, it didn't work out. They weren't on my side. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weatherly.
Next, we have Marika Moore.
Welcome, Ms. Moore.
Hi, thank you. My name's Marika Moore, and I was actually not planning on speaking here today. I'm speaking at the school board, but I was in the area and for my business license. So, as that being said, I am a local Washoe County resident, property owner and business owner. And I just wanted to throw my 2 cents out here. I've been here before speaking about shutting down the puppy mill in Reno and Sparks, and I've spoken with a lot of you about it, and the Reno one shut down, and that was awesome. Sparks, they're still working on that, but I'm here for a different issue, just about masks. I have lots of evidence, and there's lots of studies out there that say masks are ineffective for COVID. So I just wanted to put my 2 cents out there and say that I really think that we should continue on not making them mandatory. If everyone's vaccinated, they shouldn't be mandatory for the kids in school or for anybody. So my thought, there'll be a lot of protests out there today at the school board. So just to keep in mind for you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Thank you for your service.
No one else is signed in?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I appreciate that. We'll close public comment, bring it back to the board. We're on to item 7. This is our final commissioners and county managers announcements. Mr. Manager, do you have anything final?
Nothing further, Mr. Chair.
All right. Commissioner John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would be remiss if I was not to announce that I was able to take 2 of our good friends and Scotty Jung to the Art Town at the premier park of all of Washoe County, Rancho San Rafael Park, to see Keb Mo. And we were in our designated grid area, which most brilliant thing that Beth McMillan ever came up with in her life. I want this to persist. And I look to my west and I see the best looking crowd I've ever seen in my life, which is the top brass of Washoe County sitting 2 grids over. I was in Siberia, probably by design. And the chair was there, Nancy Lewinhagen, who's on Art Town Board, the manager, his bride, who am I missing? Lewinhagen's little girl, Leslie, Kate Thomas, Derek Thomas. Did I miss anybody? I think that's it. I would look over to my right, here they are. And I gotta tell you, it was unbelievable. As a woman who's been to over 250 concerts all over the United States, not the world. Oh, Mexico too, so I am international. I don't know if there's a better venue. And I love Shoreline, but that has more to do with my love for the first show I ever saw there, The Grateful Dead. So I need to go back and see, and I've been there several times, and see if it competes. But I'm going to tell you something. Sitting there in the evening, first of all, we had to park way up, which is fine with me. I wanted to walk from my house, but they had brought chairs. We walked through that beautiful park, and let me tell you something. If you haven't walked through Rancho San Rafael Park in the evening at dusk, it has its own microclimate. It's very cool, beautiful, fresh air, water flowing. But then in the evening, as the headliner was being introduced, to look around that whole valley, where we're in this bowl, here I could see the outline of Peavine Mountain. Over to the east, unfortunately, that was all smoke, but it was beautiful smoke because the way that the light was reflecting off of it. The sun was going down over the Sierras. The full moon was rising up. Tell me where else you can go do that in the West Coast to see a concert. And I think this board needs to get on it. We need to work with Art Town. Let's build some sort of permanent infrastructure, not a bunch of money, but you know that stage itself had to be her biggest expense. It has to be. If we could build, it doesn't have to be fancy schmancy Bartley Ranch, but if we built the infrastructure, partnered with Art Town, that could be a year-round venue. And I'm telling you, we did see that 2,000 people will indeed pay premium prices to sit in their grid. There's no incline or decline for you to see over. But the most brilliant volunteers I've ever seen in my life were going up to people who were dancing, because that's what you do at a concert, and say, and I heard him say it several times, we love that you're dancing. However, the dancing area, the mosh pit, but it's not a mosh pit, it's Cab-Mo. The dancing area is over here because, see, if people stood up, even somebody was soothing their baby, we can't see the stage. Right? And people were so lovely. They went and moved over to the mosh pit and did their dancing or left, baby crying, you know, whatever. But I really think Washoe County, with its CARES money, has a very important opportunity here. And you know you would get some very high-class acts just because of the visuals. That scenery blew my mind. And the shape of that park, considering we cut them 48%, just think about that in your own household. If I cut your budget 48%, I want to know what your yard's going to look like. That park made me, and that's in my district, and that's only a coincidence, that park made me feel so proud. And the beautiful people that were out there. And the cool thing about that park, too, you know, they had us all in a fence. There were so many families and other attendees who didn't pay the entrance fee, but were just sitting right out there having their own picnic, you know, jamming to the music. That is something the RSCVA should be involved in. That's heads in beds, and that's heads in beds with people with money. But again, and year-round, it could be used for the local high school to do a symphony performance. I mean, there's so many things we could be doing there. And I know, you know, that's my district, and I will have, I promise you, 10 mean emails that tell me I'm fat, ugly, and stupid. And by the way, this is the worst idea ever, because they've bought a home around the park because they don't want you to use the park. This has been going on since I worked for IASI, right? They want to look at the park, but you better not use the park. But I think we move forward with that, and that be something that is another venue that, let's face it, we don't have a lot of great venues. They're all indoors. I love Bartley Ranch. I think it's a fabulous venue, but it's not as beautiful either because Ranchera is all developed. Before you looked out there, and again, you could steal, which I did too. You go and just go up to Windy Hill and park there, and you get to see the whole concert, you know, really not paying if it's sold out. And the view was beautiful because of the barns and the, you know, the pasture and all that. And now that's a little bit gone, sorry Bartley Ranch, because of all the housing that's went up there. So I think the time to strike is now, and I would be happy to take the slings and arrows that the park preservationists and the Wilbur D. May Society, we'd have to fight them too. And the dog park people, we have to fight them too. But I still believe it's a vision that will turn out to be a legacy for Washoe County, to also be, to make a statement that we are definitely a partner of Art Town, and we will forever be using this community to buy in to make sure we can have the best quality of life that is possible here. And as a music lover, I can't think of a better venue. So if we could get to talking about that, that'd be really fun. And we already have a staff on the board, and I'm sure Miss Macmillan, who does deserve a lot of credit, I saw her, I don't know how she does this for a whole month with high energy and so excited, but you should know, as a board of county commissioners, you were well represented there, and your chairman kicked off the event, spoke to the crowd. When he asked them, do you guys love this place? The crowd went crazy. So you definitely have something to be proud of by being partners with Art Town this year. And you do owe a debt of gratitude to your chairman, because they wanted to announce me and have me come say whatever. No way, I'm there with my friends, leave me alone. So he went and did it all by himself, all the way up here in the north, Rancho San Rafael. You know he lives all the way down south after all day working. So you're well represented, and I'm very proud of Commissioner Lucy, and I started chanting 4 more years in USA. So people just thought we were adorable. But it was nice to see the brass there too, and we just had a fabulous time. We left early because I go to bed early, but it was, there's no venue that matches that except Shoreline. I would argue that right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jang. I do appreciate it. And, you know, to that point, and I got to say, Art Town and Ms. McMillan and their executive board, who, as you pointed out, are executive director, one of communications, Miss Nancy Lewinhagen, did a great job. They have done a phenomenal job planning it out this year. And on the heels of COVID, not knowing whether or not they would be able to pull off that event, multiple nights have been sold out. It is a wonderful venue. Everybody who's attended has said the parking is great, the venue is great, the music is great, the environment is great. Everything has been really nice. And not to take anything away from Wingfield and downtown Reno, but this really truly is something that we could work together and provide. And it's interesting that you bring that up, because coming on the heels of an RSCVA meeting, we had the CEO and president of Destinations International, who represents, they represent 700 different Convention and Visitors Bureau internationally. And the one thing that they said, the most important thing that they said in the last decade, is the transition that CVBs for so long did not have the inclusion of their community, and that they just always were playing to everybody outside, but not their community. And this speaks directly to that. And Mr. Donald Walsh, who's a friend of mine, who is the CEO, he said, you guys have to focus on getting to understand that community is your main focus. And I couldn't agree more. That park is amazing. To be there and watch those sunsets, they did a phenomenal job. I've rarely attended Art Town in years past. This year I've gone multiple times, and I got to tell you, it was phenomenal. And the people that attended, it was great. So hats off to Ms. McMillan and her executive board and all the volunteers that participated there. But Washoe County for really pulling together. Our park service has been amazing, and our management team has been amazing to help facilitate those needs of Art Town. And this board, when the request was made to kind of do that, to kind of make that 180 pivot to really help them, has done a great job. So I want to thank all of you, because it is really, really cool, and they have done a great job up there. So, all right. Well, and that concludes pretty much in the next couple days. I mean, you're going to get the tail end of it. So if you haven't gone out and seen it, you get a couple more days. Knock it out. But other than that, seeing no further business today, ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. Have a wonderful rest of your day.